All right, let's go into my Week 7 college football top 25 and receiving vote rankings. So, before I get into my rankings, just to let you know, three teams in my top 25 from Week 6 this past week, three teams dropped out completely of my receiving votes. And that's number 25, Louisville, after they lost to Virginia at home. That's number 18, Penn State, after they had a horrible loss at UCLA. And that's number 10, Texas, after they lose on the road. And not a very close game at a 2 and 3 Florida team. So those three teams are not even in my rankings now, and they're not even in my receiving votes. So let's get into my top 25. So my number one team this week is Miami. I believe they're 5 and 0, and I think they easily have the best resume in the country after beating Notre Dame, after beating South Florida, after beating Florida, and after winning at Florida State. In my opinion, Miami right now easily has the best resume in the country. They only have one weak win against an FCS team that they destroyed. But my number two team is Ohio State. They had another dominant performance yesterday against Minnesota, but they have some wins at Washington, who's 4 and 1, and they also have a win against Texas, but that doesn't look as good now, and they barely beat Texas. My number three team is Oregon. They go down a spot from last week. They had a bye, but their win at Penn State now doesn't look as good, and they had to beat them in double overtime. So I still think Oregon's a really good team, though. Those are the three best teams in the country, I think, right now. You can rank them in any order you want. But number four, I have Oklahoma. They had a dominant win over Kent State with a backup quarterback. Now they play Texas, which I think they probably will win, but you never know. It's a rivalry game. Number five, I have Texas Tech after a dominant performance at the time undefeated Houston. They win by 24, 35-11. So I have Texas Tech still at 5. I have Texas A&M at 6 with a dominant performance over an underrated Mississippi State team. Number 7, I have Indiana. Indiana I have at 7. They had a bye this week. They play at Oregon this week. That's going to be an interesting game. Number 8, I have Ole Miss. They also had a bye this week. Number 9, I have Alabama after they had a great win over Vanderbilt, who's still in my top 25. Number 10, I have Georgia. They had a dominant performance over Kentucky. Number 11, I have Tennessee. Number 12, I have LSU. Number 13, I have Michigan after beating Wisconsin. It was kind of a sloppy win, but with teams losing, I had to rank Michigan where they are at 13. And their only loss was to number 4 at Oklahoma. So, and they do have a win over Nebraska, who I have ranked. 14, I have South Florida. They still have a pretty good resume. Their win over Florida now looks a lot better since Florida beat Texas and pretty handily. And then their only loss was at Miami. So, who I think right now is the best team in the country. So, then they blew out Boise State. So I have South Florida at 14. 15, I have Notre Dame. So they were, 24 for me last week, but they barely lose at home to number 6 A&M by 1 point. And then they barely lose at number 1 Miami by 3 points. But then they dominate Boise State, and they have Power 4 wins over Purdue and at Arkansas. So I have Notre Dame at 15. 16, I have Missouri. They're still undefeated at 5 and 0. They play home this week to number 9 Alabama. That's going to be a really good matchup. Find out how good Missouri really is. Number 17, I have Virginia after getting a quality road win this past week at Louisville, winning in overtime. So they're number 17 for me. Number 18, I have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt I have at 18. I mean, they were competitive at Alabama. That score was closer than what the game was closer than what the score looked. Vanderbilt was tied at halftime and had a chance to take the lead late in the third or early fourth, and they threw a pick. But Vanderbilt I have at 18. They're 5 and 1. 19, I have Georgia Tech. They're undefeated. 20, I have BYU. They didn't really look that great this week against West Virginia, one of the worst Big 12 teams, West Virginia. So I have BYU. They go down 5 spots from last week, but they're still undefeated at 5 and 0. But this week they have a tough contest at 4 and 1 Arizona. 21, I have Nebraska. They had a pretty decent win over Michigan State, and they also have a good neutral site win this year against Cincinnati. And their only loss was home to 13 Michigan by 3. So number 22, I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati's only loss was neutral site to Nebraska by 3. And then they have wins at 4-2 Kansas, and they dominated Iowa State. Yes, they only won by 8 points, but the game was way more lopsided than what the final score looked. Like, Cincinnati just took their foot off the gas in the second half, and they had way too many penalties. But Cincinnati, I have a 22. 23, I have Iowa State. So Iowa State was 7 for me last week. Now they're 23. They go down 16 spots after literally getting destroyed at Cincinnati. So I have Iowa State at 23. 24, I have Florida State. Florida State, they fought hard against Miami. I mean, that game wasn't as close as what the final score looked, but they did ended up only losing by one score, 28-22, to number 1 Miami. So Florida State I have at 24. And then 25, I have Arizona State to round out my top 25 for this week. Arizona State was off this week, but this week they play on my other receiving votes. 26, I have Utah. So Utah and Arizona State play each other this week in Salt Lake City. 27, I have Illinois. I believe they host Ohio State this week, Illinois. 28, I have Auburn. I think they host Georgia this week. 29, I have TCU. Still only one loss. And 30, I have undefeated Memphis. So that rounds out my Week 7 rankings for this upcoming week.